Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my ranking of the live-action Disney fairy tales. So this video is only going to cover the most recent Disney live-action phenomenon that has taken place. So I'm going to start with Alice in Wonderland, and we're going to go all the way up through 2017's Beauty and the Beast. Take note that for the purposes of this video, I am including Oz the Great and Powerful. It was released in the time frame, and it is a fairy tale. So although it is not a remake of one of Disney's animated classics, I'm still going to include it here. I will also be including Alice Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland. Again, not exactly a remake of any of their personal films, but it's still obviously a sequel to a remake of one of their personal animated films, and it fits in with the live-action fairy tale theme. So without further ado, let's jump into the countdown with last place at number 8 is Alice Through the Looking Glass. This film felt like a complete step down from an already mediocre film. But we'll get to that one in a couple of slots. As for this sequel, it had a bunch of wondrous colors, and it had a director doing his very best Tim Burton impression. But you know what it was completely and totally lacking? Any sort of wonder in Alice in Wonderland. It fell into the trope of just overanalyzing and over-explaining characters and their backstories, trying to humanize characters we never needed to humanize. Like the Red Queen. We already loved the Red Queen, and we loved Helena Bonham Carter as the Red Queen. We didn't need to know why she turned evil, because that just made it so much worse. Especially when the reason is as ridiculous as the one is in this film. But I didn't like Sacha Baron Cohen. I hated all of his clockwork. Johnny Depp's The Mad Hatter just did not work this time around. None of it really seemed to work, and the CGI was just too much. It looked like CGI. It never settled in anywhere in a sort of realistic anything. So I didn't get on board with it. At number 7, we have Oz the Great and Powerful. Quite possibly the worst of the Wizard of Oz live-action films. Again, it just kind of had no heart. It gave us an origin story that was interesting enough and that I was actually pretty interested in seeing. And the visuals are really nice. I really love the China Girl and the entire little China village. I thought that was a great addition from the books into the film. And I think it was interesting enough to kind of see how the wizard came to be. But James Franco was just doing cartoon Franco to the max here. Mila Kunis just shrieking as the Wicked Witch the entire time. Rachel Weisz was good, but she was hardly in the film, at all. Michelle Williams was fine as the White Queen. It just all was blah. It didn't have any of the heart of the original. It didn't have any of the guts of the Disney adaptation Return to Oz that went way off the rails itself, but at least went into a new and daring direction. This one felt very paint by the numbers. It had tons of CGI, most of which I will say was done well in this film, but it felt heartless, it felt hollow, and it felt unnecessary. At number 6, we have Alice in Wonderland. The biggest crime this film commits is kind of the same crime the sequel commits, in that it completely sucks all of the wonder and the fun out of Wonderland. To Tim Burton's credit, I do think the visuals are really well done here. I thought 3D was utilized really well. All of the colors were just gorgeous, and I think the CGI work is much better than in the sequel. I also think people like Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp both give really good performances, and they really get into their character, and they have a fun time with their respective characters. But Tim Burton is doing a really weird balancing act here. He's trying to be the kooky, crazy Tim Burton that we used to love, but also is trying to make this Disney fairy tale. And what he ends up giving us is this really weird, just kind of trippy, hollow film. It has none of the heart of Alice in Wonderland, and it leads to this really, really strange ending battle that's just kind of like, okay, did we really need the Jabberwocky? I don't think so. But and all of these minor characters are upgraded to these bigger roles that nobody asked for. So overall, it's a muddled mess. There's so much going on in terms of visuals. You never know where to direct your eye because there's just so much color everywhere and so many crazy, kooky things going on. There's so much going on story-wise. There's one main plot, but there's all of this jumbledness on the periphery. There are so many characters that you never know where to focus in, and I wish somebody would have grabbed Tim Burton and say, hey, focus this movie. At number 5, we have Maleficent. So this is the only one that focuses on the big baddie. And I have to say, I was really excited for Maleficent when that first trailer came out, because I think Angelina Jolie was perfect casting. I think she was just amazing casting, and she was milking that coronation scene in the trailer. Unfortunately, that's pretty much the only evil we get to see out of Maleficent in the entire film. And it's pretty much a waste of Angelina Jolie in the title character, because she's so good in that sequence, and while she's being evil, it made you miss it so much. It made you want the Maleficent we had in Sleeping Beauty so much. Instead, it completely watered her down as a character. Again, we're forced to sympathize and over-explain and over-analyze a character that we already loved. This is a villain that is on the top of people's lists of Disney villains. And then, on top of that, we completely change the story of Sleeping Beauty. Granted, they put in some kind of throwaway lines of, the story you've heard is not the true story. But it's like, still, I mean, this is Sleeping Beauty, this is a Disney classic, and now we're just going to completely change how the story ends up going. Plus, there's a really strange and arguably inappropriate rape reference in this film with Angelina's character that I didn't like. So my biggest problem is that this was not the movie I was promised. I was promised a Maleficent movie with Angelina Jolie as Maleficent, and I was given Maleficent Light, like Maleficent's good sister. I don't know. Overall, I don't hate this movie, it just didn't really completely gel for me. So now we're in the top half, so this is when things start getting good, things start getting interesting. And at number 4, we have Beauty and the Beast. So this is actually my favorite Disney animated film. And to be honest, just my favorite Disney film, period. And I was cautiously optimistic when I heard they were remaking this film. I loved the casting choices. I did not love the second and on trailers, though. And in the end, the final product mostly delivered what I was expecting from it. The set designs are gorgeous. The production design is just simply amazing. The costume design is fantastic. But the character design for all of the side characters is just really clunky and over-designed. From Mrs. Potts to Lumiere, he was a little bit better. But then you get over to Cloudsworth, it's just nothing. Like, it's just too much going on in all of the characters' faces. They look weird, they look strange. We have a couple of great performances, like Josh Gad as LeFou and Luke Evans as Gaston. I think Dan Stevens did a really good job with the Beast, and really I think Emma Watson did a good job with her acting roles. However, Emma Watson and that auto-tune used were such a distraction to me. I liked the new songs and some of the changes they made to the story. Other changes were completely unnecessary and actually made zero sense. So pretty much everybody is really loving Beauty and the Beast right now, so I may get a little bit of hate for putting it this far down on my list, but I did actually enjoy this film. I just didn't love it, and that's why it doesn't get a little bit further up on my list. At number 3, we have Cinderella. So I think Cinderella actually really divided audiences, and it was really neck and neck on which one was going to get this 3 spot, Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella. But ultimately, what bumped Cinderella into the spot for me was I left with a huge smile on my face. It completely swept me up in the romance. It completely swept me up into a fairy tale. And that's what I wanted from this Cinderella retelling. And it accomplished just that. I think Lily James was a fantastic Cinderella. Cate Blanchett, are you kidding? She was amazing as Lady Tremaine. And let me just say that Cinderella was completely robbed of an Oscar for Best Costume Design, because these costumes in this film are absolutely stunning. I mean, everything Lady Tremaine wears in particular is flaw-free, but all of the costumes here are so great. The production design is so fantastic, and it managed to keep the charm of Cinderella. It managed to just kind of sweep me up into this magical fairy tale. It really broke into my cynical, curmudgeon heart and made me feel the romance. The only problems with this are that they made Cinderella maybe a bit too much of a martyr in this film, even more so than the original, which is kind of like, oh. And it struggles staying on that line between staying real life fairy tale and then slipping into super cartoonish. And it does slip into super cartoony one too many times. But overall, I really, really liked the Cinderella retelling. At number 2, we have Pete's Dragon. So I actually really was not looking forward to seeing this film, at all. I don't like Pete's Dragon, the original movie. Just never got into it, never enjoyed it. And the trailers for this film looked just bad. So I wasn't really anticipating going to see it. However, this was such a huge, wonderful surprise for me last year. I absolutely loved Pete's Dragon. This felt like the wonderful, old school family films that I grew up loving, about a boy and his misfit friend, whether that be a killer whale, whether that be Mighty Joe Young, or whether that be Elliot, the big green dragon. And what makes this film work so well is that you fall in love with Elliot. He is so expressive in the face. He is such a warm, easy to love character, and the connection that little boy who plays Pete gets with this dragon, what a great performance from him, is fantastic. Their connection makes this entire film. I thought Bryce Dallas Howard was really good. She helps to sell all of this connection. Robert Redford was nice and charming as kind of the kooky old man. Just all of the parts fell into place for an extremely charming, beautifully crafted, heartwarming, beautiful film. I really don't think there's anything to really dislike about Pete's Dragon, so I don't understand where all the hatred for this film comes from. I think it's mainly from the trailers and the fact that people didn't actually give it a chance and go see it, but I highly recommend you do, because it is one of Disney's best live-action fairy tales. They execute the magic of a fairy tale so well, and unlike so many of these retellings that I've mentioned before, it has so much heart. It is built on heart. So, that's why Pete's Dragon made it all the way up to number 2 on my list. So now, the moment we've all been waiting for. My pick for the best Disney live-action fairy tale is The Jungle Book. So a completely CGI animated film with nothing but animal characters and one little boy. One little boy who had almost no acting experience, asked to run around a green screen and pretend it was a jungle, pretend he was talking to animals. That actually sounds like a setup for disaster. However, good job, Jon Favreau, because you made it work excellently. First of all, the CGI work here is absolutely stunning. These animals, their fur, their structure, the way they move, it all was done spot on. At very few points in this film can you just look straight at these animals and say, oh, nope, that is definitely not real, it's CGI. Of course, when they're moving their mouth, that's part of it. And I think the wolves talking, the way their mouths looked when they talked, was the most distracting. But wow, they looked fantastic. Not only that, the jungle looked fantastic. All of the landscaping was wonderful. And how Mowgli looked inside of this completely generated landscape, interacting with these completely generated animals, was so seamless. You never look at the screen and see like a floating boy. It always has so much texture and it looks so real. But more than that, I think this and Pete's Dragon are the only two in this lineup that actually improves upon the original that they're adapting. The difference here is that Pete's Dragon was meh received at best, and the Jungle Book is widely regarded as a Disney animated classic. And the fact that they were able to even kind of up the ante a little bit on the animated classic is a feat in of itself. The changes they made here made so much sense. They were so warranted. I loved the new ending that they gave here. I thought the script was wonderful. I felt the connections between all of the different characters here. I thought the voice acting was all fantastic. But what do you expect when you have heavy hitters like Bill Murray and Christopher Walken, Ben Kingsley, Idris Elba, Lupita Nyong'o, and Scarlett Johansson did good too. But you have an amazing cast who all bring so much character and so much personality and life to these characters. I really loved The Jungle Book. It had a couple problems here and there, but I think as a whole, this is by far Disney's most successful live-action fairy tale to date, and actually was in my top 20 favorite films for 2017. So, that is how I rank the last 8 of the Disney live-action fairy tales. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts down below, and while you're at it, go ahead and just drop your personal ranking down there as well. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!